Hello everyone, welcome to OK Biology Classroom and welcome to one of the most interesting topics in biology. Yes, that is genetics. Well, as a biology student, I think that you should know something in genetics, especially because of how it is advancing from time to time. It is actually a broad topic, but I've segmented them. So we are going to pick them segment by segment. But before we get into what you have for this particular lesson, please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you always have our videos whenever they are released. This is going to be the introduction. There are some important terms that I think you should know before we get into the main concepts in genetics. So for the objectives, I'm saying that at the end of this lesson, the student would know the relationship between chromosome, DNA, and gene. And as well, the student would be able to explain some basic terms used in genetics. Right. But let us start by taking the definition of genetics itself. Genetics is the study of genes, heredity, and genetic variation. We'll be talking about genes very soon. So let us look at the definition of heredity. Heredity is the passing on of traits from parents to offspring. So what does this mean? You probably have observed that a child may resemble one of the parents so closely, and this gives you the evidence that some traits within the parent have been passed on to the child, and they are being shown outwardly for you to see. Well, it doesn't happen only in human beings. The same thing happens in all other organisms. Plants, for example, let us take mango. There are some mangoes that produce smaller fruits, and there are mangoes that produce bigger fruits. You realize that the mangoes that produce smaller fruits keep producing other mango plants that also produce smaller fruits. Just like the mangoes that produce bigger fruits keep producing other mangoes that also produce bigger fruits. So what does it mean? The traits are being passed on from the parents to the offspring. And know that in the future, the offspring would also pass them on to their future offspring. That is what heredity is about, the passing on of traits from parents to offspring. Let me come back to the case of humans. You'd realize that even though one child or the other may resemble one of the parents so closely, but among siblings, you would also realize that there would be differences among them in how they look. Well, some of them may not even resemble any of the parents at all. That is when genetic variation would also come in. So we are going to talk about all of these in detail in our subsequent lessons. Now let us proceed to talk about the gene. But before we do so, let us refresh our minds on human chromosome. Remember, in our lesson on DNA structure, I talked about the human chromosome. But there are some 2 points that I would like you to note in here. The first point is that in diploid organisms, chromosomes exist in pairs. So like you are seeing in this particular image, this is the first pair. Remember that the human being has 46 chromosomes in each somatic cell. So in each normal cell, there are 46 chromosomes. The 46 chromosomes are in 23 pairs. So that is what I'm showing with this particular image, where you see the first pair here. So 1 and 2 forming the first pair. This is the second pair. This is the third pair. So they have been paired up to the 23rd pair. But this is the 22nd pair. So one of these two pairs would be the 23rd pair. If this pair is added to the 22 pairs, they become 23 pairs. And that would mean the person would be a female. If this pair is rather used, then it means the person would be a male. So this pair, in addition to the 22 pairs, would make the person a male. But what I want you to notice is that in diploid organisms, chromosomes exist in pairs. It is not only in humans, so just like I'm saying in all diploid organisms. So note that point. The second point I would like you to notice is that in sexual reproduction, only one of the two chromosomes would be passed on to the gametes. So what am I trying to say? Gametes, we can refer to them the male sex cell and the female sex cell, what we call the sperm cell and the egg cell. When the sperm cell is forming in a male, remember that there are 23 pairs. When you pick this first pair, only one of these would be selected. Right. When you pick the second pair, the same thing would happen. Both would not be selected to form the sperm cell. Only one of these would be chosen. The same will happen to the third pair. It will happen for all the pairs up to the 22nd pair. Then on the 23rd pair, one of these would be chosen because it's a male sperm cell. So one of these would be chosen to form it. So that's the second point I would like you to note. The same would happen when the egg cell is forming. So there are supposed to be only half of the 46. So one of these would be chosen to form the egg cell in female, and one of these would be chosen as well. One of these would be chosen up to the 22nd pair. Then the same thing will happen to the 23rd pair. One of these would be chosen to form the egg cell. Right, so that's the point I would like you to note. We'll be using this in our explanations later, so please do well to remember what I've said at this particular point. After talking about the human chromosome set, and for that matter for diploid organisms, let us now proceed to look at the definition of gene. A gene could be defined as the basic unit of heredity. And what am I trying to say? Remember that in our lesson on DNA structure, we looked at the chromosome and we opened up the structure of the chromosome and we found out that the chromosome is made up largely of the DNA. Right. Now, a portion of the DNA that contains information enough to cause a character to be passed on from the parent to the offspring is referred to as the gene. So note that if this is our chromosome, from the top here to down here, it contains DNA. And that is what I have opened up for you to see in here. Right. But any portion on it, so for example, if you are considering this particular region, and the information contained in this particular region of the chromosome is enough to cause a certain character to be passed on from the parent to the offspring, we refer to it as the gene. So that is why we are saying that gene is the basic unit of heredity. So of course, you can also say that the gene is a portion of the chromosome that is responsible for any particular character or for any particular trait. But note also that because the DNA makes up the chromosome, any portion of the DNA, for that matter, a portion of the chromosome that contains the information which is enough to cause a character to be passed on from a parent to the offspring is referred to as the gene. So that is what I've illustrated here. This particular portion has been expanded here, and you can see that there is DNA information from here to this particular region, and this particular DNA information can cause a character to be passed on from the parent to the offspring. And I can illustrate it like this. So it means this region is the gene. Right. Well, after knowing that the gene is made up of DNA information, let us also note that a gene size ranges from a few hundred DNA bases to over 2 million DNA bases. Because you know that the DNA bases are actually the information of the DNA. Good. At this stage, let us now proceed to look at the locus of a gene. It is very simple. We can define locus as the position on a chromosome occupied by a gene. Every gene occupies a specific position on a chromosome. So that position occupied by the gene is what we refer to as the locus. So let's look at our image again. We have this particular chromosome and there is a gene here. Right, so this gene is occupying a position. So we refer to this position which is being occupied by the gene on the chromosome as its locus. Note that on any one chromosome, there are so many genes. So as you see one gene occupying this particular position, there could be another gene occupying the position here. And as well, there could be another gene occupying a position here, and there could be another gene occupying a position here. Right, along the entire length of the chromosome. So like we see in this particular image, you see there are so many genes occupying positions on the chromosome in here. So we refer to this particular position of the gene there as its locus. And there is another gene in here, and that is its locus. And there's another gene here, that is its locus. And together we would say, because the plural is loci, so these genes are occupying their specific positions, and those are their loci. So it's very simple. Locus of a gene is the position occupied by that particular gene. Let us now proceed to talk about another important term in genetics, alleles. We'll be using this term a lot, so please do well to understand it so that in our subsequent use of it, you would be very familiar with it. Right. An allele could be defined as one of the forms of the same gene. Well, in simple terms, it is just like saying that there is color red. But this color red could be in the form of a deep red or a bright red. But it's the same color red. That's the same thing we are talking about here. A gene for one particular character is just that same gene, but could be expressed in different forms. Let us look at an example like height. When we consider height as a trait, there would be a gene responsible for this particular trait, height. But that gene for height could be expressed in the form of tall or short. So the tall gene is one allele and the short gene is another allele, although they are all for the same gene called height. So like being illustrated in here, as we see the two genes and they are occupying the same position, they are doing the same work, and in fact it's the same gene, height. But this height could be in the form of tall or short. So that is what we refer to as alleles, different forms of the same gene. Now, alleles are also of different types, so it is important for us to know the types of alleles. An allele could be described as dominant or recessive. And what do we mean by these two terms? A dominant allele shows its effect in the presence of another allele, whereas a recessive allele does not show its effect in the presence of another allele. So that is just to say that a dominant allele is the strong one, in simple terms, whereas the recessive allele is the weaker one. Let us use the same example of height. We said that the capital T was used to stand for tallness, whereas the small t was used to stand for shortness. Capital T is dominant and small t is recessive. So it means that whenever capital T and small t are paired in an organism, the person or that individual would be tall. Right, so as being shown in here, that when an individual plant, so in this case we're using the example of plants, so if that individual plant has two of these, remember in diploids they would have two chromosomes, so one chromosome would have this capital T and the other chromosome would have this small t. When they meet in that particular individual organism, because this capital T is stronger than the small t, the individual would be tall. Just like when the individual has two capital T's, of course they are both for tallness, tall and tall, so the individual would be tall. It means the only situation where the individual would be short is when that particular, whether to say plant or individual organism, has two of the short alleles. Right, that is the only time the individual would be short. So note that point. Dominant alleles show their effect in the presence of another allele. And that is what I put in simple words as the strong one. And then the recessive I refer to as the weaker one, because it does not show its effect in the presence of the dominant allele. And I've illustrated with the example of height, where tallness is dominant and shortness is recessive. Knowing that alleles are of different types, it now introduces the concept of genotype and phenotype. Genotype is the genetic makeup of an organism with reference to a particular characteristic. Right, so in other words, we would say that it is a set of alleles that determine a characteristic in an organism. From what we just looked at in the case of height, we realize that an individual could have two capital T's, and there is also the alternative where the individual would have one capital T and one small t, or otherwise the individual would have two small t's. These two capital T's are different from these where we have one capital T and one small t, and small t in this particular case. So you can see that the set of alleles that are going to determine the characteristic in the organism are being shown differently here. So we refer to them as the genotypes. So genotypes simply refers to the set of alleles or the genetic makeup of the organism. Then, every genotype would cause a certain characteristic to be observed in the organism. So the observable characteristic in the organism is what we refer to as the phenotype. For example, we said that an organism could have capital T and would be tall. Alternatively, an organism could have small t and would be short. In this case, this capital T would be the genotype, whereas the tallness we are going to observe in the organism would be the phenotype, because that is what we actually see. In this particular instance, the small t would be the genotype, because these are the genes. But on the outside, we are going to observe the organism to be short, and that is the phenotype. So there are many phenotypes that we are going to observe. So like I've listed in here, whether short, tall, white, purple, round, or wrinkled. These are all phenotypes. But there's another point to note in here, that a phenotype is determined by both the genotype and the environment. Yes, this is adding that the environment can also have influence on what you are going to observe on the outside. For example, an individual might have the genes that are responsible for tallness, so the individual is expected to be tall. But if that particular individual is not well fed, the person cannot attain that maximum height that the person is supposed to have. So it means in this case, the environment has also influenced what you are going to see on the outside. Next, let me further explain how the genotype came about. Remember, I've said that in diploids, one of each pair of chromosomes is inherited from the parents respectively. So since the chromosomes are paired, the person received one of the chromosomes from each of the parents. Note also that the chromosomes of one parent match with the chromosomes of the other, and so do their genes. So what am I trying to say? Well, let us look at the image again, and this time let us consider the sixth pair. So this one, I'm going to expand it, and you're going to find them illustrated this way. This chromosome was inherited from one of the parents, and this one was also inherited from the other parent. So assuming this one came from the father, so this was the chromosome chosen from the father in the sperm cell, and this one was chosen from the mother in the egg. Now when they meet, because they are chromosomes of the same pair, and for that matter refer to them as homologous chromosomes, the kind of genes that are found on them are also the same. So if there is a gene for height in here, this one will have the gene for height, and on that same locus here, there would be the gene for height. The genes would be of the same type because they are occupying the same position, but then they could be expressed in different forms as different alleles. So this could be capital T, this could be small t. So since the combination of the chromosomes and their genes would cause different combinations of the alleles, that is what brought about the concept of genotype. Because you wouldn't expect organisms to have the same alleles on both chromosomes. The alleles may differ, but note that because it's the same locus, they are the same gene, but will be expressed differently. And since they are expressed differently, it brings about the concept of genotype. Let me further enhance your understanding by using the example of albinism. Albinism is a genetic disorder where there is lack of pigmentation in the skin, hair, and eyes of the individual. So in this case, we are going to consider that particular gene that is responsible for pigmentation. If that gene is present in a chromosome, then it means the person has the gene for pigmentation. So the skin is going to be pigmented, the hair would be pigmented. So assuming the person is dark, it means the skin is going to be dark, the hair would be dark, the eyes are going to be dark. That is, the portion of the eyes that are supposed to be dark would also be dark as well. But if the person does not have this particular allele that is responsible for pigmentation, it means the person is going to have a different allele. So depending on the kind of combination the person would have from the chromosomes the person inherited from the parents, that would tell the kind of genotype the person is going to have. So let us look at the possible genotypes. Assuming somebody picked capital A from the father and capital A from the mother, it means the person has two alleles that are both for pigmentation. So in this case, the person's genotype would be capital A, and the person will have the skin pigmented. So if the person is supposed to be dark or have dark skin, the skin will be dark. There is also another alternative where the person would pick capital A from one of the parents and small a from the other parent. In this case, it is going to result in a different genotype, and that is capital A, small a. But since the capital A for pigmentation is dominant, it means the person is going to have normal skin, which is pigmented. There is another alternative where the person would have small a from the father and small a from the mother. And in this case, the genotype is going to be small a, small a. But since small a is responsible for albinism, this is going to result in the person being an albino. So like this. So you can see clearly here that there's a genotype small a, and the genotype is showing in the phenotype as the person being albino, where the skin has not been pigmented, the hair is not pigmented, and as well the eyes are not pigmented. So either not pigmented or the pigmentation will be very low. So different genotypes result in different phenotypes. So in this case, you have seen that the genotypes are what we are referring to as the capital A, capital A, small a, small a, small a. And the phenotypes are that the person will have normal skin color or the person will have an albino skin color. Good. So this is the end of what I have for this particular lesson. Yes, remember that today in our lesson we have looked at the relationship between chromosome, DNA and gene, and we have as well looked at genes, loci, alleles, genotype and phenotype. That is their definitions, and I've described them well to you. And also we have talked about the difference between dominant and recessive alleles, where I said one is stronger than the other, and so in the presence of the stronger one, the weaker one cannot show itself. So the weaker one only shows itself, that's the recessive, only shows itself when there are two forms of it. I hope you have enjoyed the lesson today. In our next lesson, we're going to look at the one who introduced the concept of genetics to us, the experiment that he used, and the laws that he came with. So Mendel's experiment and laws of inheritance. But before we end for this particular lesson, please try and solve these questions, and I will provide an email address as well as a contact that you can send your answers to, and I will definitely respond to them. Number 1, define each of the following: genetics, heredity. Then the second question, differentiate between genotype and phenotype. And finally, what is the relationship between a gene and a chromosome? Thank you for being part of today's lesson. Please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you always have our videos whenever they are released.